Welcome back for another Musician Profiles celebrating racial diversity from the International Conference of Symphony and Opera Musicians, otherwise known as ICSOM. My name is Doug Rosenthal, and I'm the Associate Principal Trombonist with the Pittsburgh Symphony. And today I'm joined by Catherine Van Handel, Principal Bassoon of the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. Welcome.
Hi, Doug. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. It's great to be speaking with you. So before we get started, tell us about yourself. Where you're from, what brought you to Milwaukee, anything you'd like to highlight.
I was born in Taipei, Taiwan. I started piano when I was 4. Started cello when I was 5, and I moved to the United States when I was 6 years old. And picked up the bassoon when I was 14, about to enter my freshman year of high school. I wanted to be in the band. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I just was always in music. My mother loved classical music, had all of her kids, me and 2 of my siblings, playing music. So I actually can't think of a time when I didn't have music in my life. And I fell in love with the bassoon, and that was what I wanted to do. I grew up in Connecticut and um, went to a New York Philharmonic concert my freshman year of high school, and they played Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra. I was just memorized when I walked into Lincoln Center, the fountain and the bright chandeliers, the red carpets, the wall of all the musicians. And then when I walked into the hall, um, I was met with this beautiful sound of all the instruments warming up. And I was just in awe. When the piece started and the second movement came on and the bassoons were featured, that was my deciding moment. And I told myself I was going to be an orchestral musician. I wanted to play in the orchestra, um, you know, for my career. And I never looked back since.
I love that. I love the piece, and I just love everything about that story. Was that the first time that you ever heard an orchestra live?
Probably not, but I think you're introduced to an orchestra when you're in school, third, fourth grade. You go on a field trip, but I wasn't really serious about music at that point. I think I was still just, playing piano for fun, playing in the string orchestra. Um, but I think, when you're entering high school and you're trying to find your way and trying to find your path, what you can do in your life, that was when I realized, well, hey, music has been a huge part of my life this entire time. um, so yeah, and I thought the bassoon was such a cool instrument. I mean, it is a really fascinating instrument. I mean, there's 9 keys just for the left thumb, and you have to make your own reeds. And you're, considered the grandfather of the orchestra, so you're very wise. And you have beautiful moments in all of the most beautiful pieces in the orchestral repertoire.
Do you have a particular favorite? Is it Bartok Concerto?
I it's hard to say because I have so many favorites. I love the Baroque. I love Bach. I love Mozart. There's just always something uh, so fun in the bassoon writing for each genre. In the romantic, Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich, Stravinsky, there's always some kind of quirkiness that they know how to bring out in the bassoon and in the flavor of the bassoon. And I think that's what makes it really exciting for me to be able to play all this different repertoire every week. Um,
I'd love to hear more about these characteristics about the bassoon that stood out to you, especially young Catherine. But what like Was it the quirkiness? Was it the grandfatherness? Or
Oh, yeah. Well, I I didn't really know much about band repertoire until I started band class, but I remembered Lincolnshire Posy, and that was probably one of my favorite things to play.
and for string players watching this, that's a piece by Percy Granger that
Right.
a lot of us wind and percussion players played in our musical upbringing.
Yeah, it's a classic. um, yeah, so I think that, and then we also did play some orchestral pieces in band class. Like we played Tchaikovsky 4 in band class, and I remember we did we did Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I
Did
think
you? I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you do the entire Fourth Symphony for arranged for band?
we did the last movement arranged for band.
Wow.
Luckily, it was still an F. Sometimes they transpose to like E flat or something. That
It's a lot of fast notes.
yeah, yeah.
I totally interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh no,
But so you were talking about Tchaikovsky's Fourth. You were talking about Sorcerer's Apprentice by Dukas.
yeah. And just bring out the different flavors and characteristics that the bassoon has. Because we do have a wide musical range. It's 3.5 octaves, and we have from um, a low B flat, 3 octaves below the middle C, and that's our lowest note. And then we can go all the way up to, let's say, like a high F, high G, which would be 2 octaves above treble clef. I mean above middle C. So yeah, I mean you have something like Rite of Spring, where it's very atmospheric, and then you can sometimes be confused by, depending on the range and the timbre. Some people might mistake it for a French horn, um, or like an oboe because it's that high. And then I just love the sound of the bassoon with combinations of other instruments, like with the violin and bassoon. It's a really beautiful blend. Bassoon and harp can be really soothing. And then obviously with bassoon and French horn, you could just be another horn player. Um, I'm sure bassoon and trombone too would make for beautiful tenor duets.
Absolutely. I think we should make that happen.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
No, well,
and oh,
oh no, please. This, I didn't mean to
oh,
interrupt.
no, I could go on forever and listing all the great blends with other instruments. So,
I was going to ask, are there any, do any specific pieces come to mind that pair the bassoon with any of these instruments that you've mentioned?
Debussy, um,
Oh, what by Debussy?
like for instance, well, I'm thinking of this because I played this recently, Iberia,
Hmm.
um, and then when you're up in the stratosphere, you and I'm playing tutti with harp. I mean, with flute. It's really cool. And then even with violin in that high range. Um,
Well, and
yeah,
you mentioned horn. One of my favorite bassoon and horn moments is the nocturne from Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream.
yeah, yeah, exactly that, and Barber's Summer Music, the opening
Oh,
with
the Woodwind Quintet. Yeah.
yeah, hmm yeah.
Hmm.
So bassoon can be kind of like a double agent for a lot of these different sections of the orchestra.
So you mentioned this concert at the New York Philharmonic. How old were you? 14, you said?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, so now, after 14-year-old Catherine sees the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra, are there any performances of your own with Milwaukee or with other orchestras that really stand out to you as something particularly remember as something special?
Oh man, there are a few. I think Mahler 6 with Sir Simon Rattle and the Philadelphia Orchestra, that was really magical. Um, Even getting to play last minute with the Boston Symphony last summer was fantastic. Just, I mean, what a once in a lifetime opportunity. Um,
Well, I was there to witness that. I mean, the story behind that is that due to circumstances, they needed to bring a bassoon player in, and I was playing like what extra trombone parts on that tour, and we met up in Cologne.
yeah, yeah.
And you talk about the versatility of the bassoon. I heard you play an array of styles, and it
Oh.
was it was just so um fascinating to sit back and watch you. I mean, what you played Prokofiev's Fifth
Yeah.
and
Levels as
Ravel's
well.
La Valse. Yeah.
Mhm.
What else did you play on that tour? I forget.
Well, I ended up playing almost everything and every single part.
Right. So that means then you played Petrushka, Stravinsky.
Petrushka, John Williams Violin Concerto.
So I'm curious to go back. I'm going to rewind like 20 minutes in the interview now, or however long we've been talking. And you said that that your siblings also played music. Did you all play music together?
We did, yeah.
And
Uh,
which instruments did they play?
we all started on piano. That was sort of the norm in Taiwan, in Asia, and we actually all went to a music private school, and you had to audition to get in. Like I started Yamaha classes when I was 3, so I already knew my solfege before my ABCs and before my Mandarin was any good. Um, so, and then my brother played violin. That was his primary instrument in the beginning. Um, and then he, at some point, pivoted to the French horn. And these were all my mother's choices. My sister, her main instrument was the clarinet, and then my main instrument was going to be the cello. So I did that for a few years before I picked bassoon for myself. But piano is kind of, the secondary instrument, but you have to know how to play, and I think it's so great for your ear training. Just being able to hear chords. I feel like even intonation and tuning wise, having that core piano foundation, and it helps, especially for a wind and brass instrument when um, our one of the three top things that we have to focus on is the intonation. So
Yes. It's an ongoing struggle. Now, one day I'll play in tune. Well,
you play
I
perfectly in tune.
oh, perfectly. No, I do think I do think it's interesting though that the instruments that your siblings played, you listed as instruments that you enjoy playing with in the orchestra.
Hmm.
And I didn't know if that was just coincidence or if there actually was like a
Oh,
sentimental attachment to it or
I never thought about it that way.
well, it's even if it's just coincidence, it's a
Yeah,
fun one.
yeah.
um so you mentioned okay, so Catherine is playing bassoon in high school, and then what was the next step after high school?
I attended the Juilliard Pre-College my sophomore year of high school through the end of my high school years. So 3 years at Juilliard Pre-College, and then I attended the Curtis Institute of Music, and I was there for 5 years. Um, and luckily, in my last couple of years of schooling, that was when I started to get more really serious into auditioning for orchestras and trying to break into the industry. So my first win was the Harrisburg Symphony, and that was in my final year. And so I started to get more and more experience. I started getting calls and last minute gigs, and it was really exciting. Um, and that was also when I made the Philadelphia Orchestra sub list, and so then I was able to sub with them. Um, and then upon graduation, I had won a trial week with the Toronto Symphony for associate principal bassoon. And a couple weeks after graduation, I did my trial week and was offered the position. So in 2015, I moved to Canada, and uh, I was there for a very brief moment. And I still miss all my colleagues in Toronto. Uh, but in my the first day of my second season in Toronto was the principal bassoon of Milwaukee audition, and so I took that, and I've been in Wisconsin ever since.
Hmm. Rewinding to Harrisburg, that was the first time that you and I ever played together, was in the Nutcracker,
Oh my gosh.
um, in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh my
Well,
god.
was that
Yeah.
2015? I think you said that was the year
Yeah.
2014.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
I because I remember people saying like, "Oh, bassoon player is this is the person who just won our audition," and I don't know if we ever actually spoke that week,
Oh,
but um,
I don't think we ever talked about this.
oh yeah, isn't that wild? We were, it was it was a it was a really fun time having winter in the land of chocolate with
Yeah.
in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
That was my
um,
first that was my first service with the Harrisburg Symphony.
and was that your first time playing Nutcracker as well?
Hmm.
Which it was, if I remember correctly, was the reduced orchestration. So, which
It
meant that
was
it
even
was,
harder.
yeah, for those of us who remain. Um, yeah,
Wow. Oh
um,
my gosh. So
I
we've known
know.
each other since 2015? Is that or
Yeah, or at least
2014?
we've been blending our sounds together since then.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
I love that. I know. Well,
I love that.
I I wish I knew who coined this phrase, but someone said, um, the classical music industry isn't a small room, it's a big, no, it's not a small world, it's a big room. And I think it's so true. This is such an example of that.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, yeah, but this interview isn't about me, it's about you. So fast forwarding to Milwaukee, what how did you start there? What were there some memorable concerts from your first couple seasons there?
Yeah, there've been a lot of great performances. I was hired by Ado DeVart. He was the previous music director, and um, yeah, he's beloved, and we had some amazing performances with him. I I would say, yeah, I mean, a lot of them. I learned so much just while he was on the podium. Um, in my first couple of years, I think we did a lot of the big bassoon stuff. Like we did Scheherazade, Beethoven 4, Shostakovich 10, um, some Mozart operas, Mendelssohn 3. I love him conducting Stravinsky. I always think of the piece for wind instruments. Oh, shoot, what's
Oh,
it
the
called?
symphonies of wind instruments.
Yeah, yeah. That one I still recall, and
What what did he bring to the table that made it so special?
he's a musician himself, and he knows what he wants and um, what he's listening for, and he's very clear, and he's great at fixing intonation problems. Um, and I mean, I I think he he's just had so much experience on his plate as a musician and as a conductor, and having conducted and recorded a lot of these pieces. Um, I think he's known as the orchestra builder, I believe. Um, he, you know, was in the San Francisco Symphony and kind of built that, then the Minnesota, then St. Paul, and I know he did that in Hong Kong, and so he sort of did that for us in Milwaukee, and I was one of the last few hires, and um, by the time he left, I believe like 60% of the orchestra were his hires. Um,
Wow.
so he's left a lasting impact, and we still, think of him and uh, think back on his time here.
Um, so as time has gone on in Milwaukee, and perhaps in other places that you've played as well, um, any other experiences that you'd like to share? Any big concerts or projects?
Oh, well, I think I have a, an entrepreneurial spirit. I also like to pursue things outside of the orchestra, and I think it's really important to always continue promoting yourself, um, and to put yourself out there, even though it can be it can be scary at times. But what I've learned is, to always stay open minded. I think that's really important. Um, and uh, I think in the last few years, as I get older, I remind myself to, if I'm going through something difficult, to always just take a moment and take a step back to assess and look at it from a different side's point of view. Um, yeah, I think I'm learning to be more self-reflective, um, especially when you're doing projects. Like I released my debut album last year, and that was a huge project, and it was like a baby of mine, and I'm very proud of it. But it takes so much planning and um, details, things that you wouldn't think about unless you started doing it. Um, but I think it was such a great experience to do. I'm not saying you should put out an album, but but I think, yeah, I think sometimes it's good. It's great to put yourself out there, and it's a good way to meet other musicians outside of your city, outside of just your orchestra, your bubble. Um, I like to just seek um, am- other ambitious people and people that are passionate and wanting the same things as you. I think that's what keeps me going and what gives me the drive. So,
Hmm. I love that. Congratulations on your solo album.
oh, thanks.
You've been so humble about it. I actually, when we saw each other in Europe, you probably just had been launched, or if it hadn't been yet, it was about to be. So congratulations. Tell us about it. What, are there other artists on it? Any particular pieces you'd like to highlight about it?
Sure. Well, it's called Bassoon Soiree, from Latin America to Paris. It released a little bit over a year and a half ago in January, and it was right around the time I was about to play David Ludwig's Bassoon Concerto with the Milwaukee Symphony, and I I wanted to make sure that it released around that time, and I also ended up recording the David Ludwig, and that's going to be released in September, I believe.
And that's with the Milwaukee Symphony.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I will be getting
So,
that recording.
yeah, it'll be available on all streaming platforms and all that. But yeah, I think last year was a big um, year for me and to put out solo stuff. I don't know if any of you guys out there are interested in doing solo works, but I think it's really great for your playing, and it's great for uh, your resume. It's just like another thing for you to learn, dealing with sound engineering and recordings, and it's a whole nother world. Um, but yeah, so that came out, and um, there was just me and a pianist, Edward Laurel, who was awesome. He has recorded many albums with James Ennis, and so he is just so sensitive and just, a musician's dream to work with.
Mm.
Um, and it's just, a bunch of classics, you know, from the French and Latin American repertoire. Some of them are French bassoon standards that bassoonists would know, and then some of them are arrangements. I had one piece on there that was written actually by my stepfather, and that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to record it, because there's been no recording of it, and he wrote it for me, and I actually premiered it at my Curtis graduation recital.
Oh
Um,
my.
so yeah, it was like a very important project of mine, and there is also even one arrangement that I did on there, and that's the first track.
Oh wow. So just so we know what to look for here, what is the piece you arranged, and what is the piece that your stepfather arranged, or not arranged, composed?
Oh, sure. So, I it's called Estrellita, which is very you know, popular Mexican love song, originally written for soprano, and then a lot of violinists play it. I think cellists play it too. And then during the pandemic, that was one of my COVID projects. I arranged that for bassoon and piano, and then there's another version of Estrellita, but it's jazzy, and I love it so much. And I kind of made them like bookends. So it starts with my Estrellita, and then you go through, the French and Latin American pieces on the rest of the tracks. And then the very end is the second Estrellita, but jazzy version, which you don't expect until you get like 30 seconds into it. So it's just fun. It's really easy to listen to. Just put on the background if you're, just cleaning your house or something. So,
Wow. Well, again,
oh,
congratulations.
and
Yes.
um, and then my stepfather's piece is called Tanganera, and it's an homage to Astor Piazzolla
Oh wow.
by Rui dos Reis, and I think that's the fifth track.
Well, I look forward to hearing all this.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. This recording already came out. I'm mixing up the two. Yes, I
Oh,
I will
yes.
absolutely be listening to this today. And we also have the Milwaukee Symphony recording to look forward to, uh,
Yeah,
in the months or years to come, or whenever it's released.
yes. I'll
Um,
definitely let you know when it's out.
please let all your fans know. Well, it's been so awesome. I always love chatting with you. There's one question that we like to ask in these interviews, and which you kind of have answered already, but I'm wondering if perhaps you wanted to add anything onto that. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self a piece of advice, what would it
Oh,
be?
believe in yourself and trust your guts. Um, I've now I've been doing a lot of positive affirmations. Truly believe in them. You have to just keep saying it over and over to yourself. Whatever it is, like I'm a great musician, or I I'm I'm an artist, because you have to be the one to believe in yourself, or else no one else will. So, and it does wonders to your mind and your brain. Um, it's crazy. It's kind of like meditation, but I wish I had started doing that when I was younger. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm very interested in learning about this. Um, where have you discovered these self affirmations? Is it is it spiritual? Is it something that you've just come up with yourself? And if that's too
Um,
personal of a question, that's fine. You don't have to answer.
um, I think when I was taking auditions, you're just trying to learn, you're trying to get better, and um, there's so much you can do just practicing your instrument, but then people forget that it's not just the instrument that you have to train your mind.
Mm.
So, you know, I think 90% of the work after you can play the bassoon, you can play the trombone. It's all mental. It's a mental game after
Hard agree.
that.
Well, thanks, Catherine. And thank you all for tuning in to this interview of Musician Profiles Celebrating Racial Diversity from ICSOM. And before we sign off here, Catherine, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, but I just want to thank you, Doug, for interviewing me. It was so fun to chat with you again and great to catch up with you.
I love hanging out with you. I love
Me
chatting.
too.
I'm so glad that the music world keeps, bringing us together. So
Me too. Me too. Thank you so much.
thank you, Catherine.